gentle hush between day and night, when the last golden traces of sunlight were softening into a cool, dusky blue, a valley lay cradled between low, rounded hills, wrapped in a calm that seemed to breathe with its own quiet rhythm. And in this valley, there was a forest unlike any other. A forest where every leaf held a soft glow, where every branch seemed to murmur with kindness, and where the air itself felt like a tender embrace, slow and warm and endlessly peaceful. At the edge of this luminous forest walked a traveler named Elian, a quiet soul with steady footsteps and a heart that had always been drawn to tranquil places, to soft breezes and gentle light, and the quiet songs of flowing water. Elian wore a simple cloak of muted grey that caught the last light of the fading evening and seemed to drink it in, the fabric growing softer and more shadowy as the sun slipped lower. And as Elian stepped beneath the first arching branches of the glowing trees, there was a feeling as gentle as a sigh that this was a place where every worry grew lighter, a place where every breath came slower and deep without effort, a place that seemed to understand tiredness and to welcome it with warmth. The trunks of the trees were smooth and pale, with soft, curling patterns that shimmered faintly like moonlight reflected on still water. Their leaves were broad and slightly translucent, edged with a delicate silver light that seemed to gather from nowhere, making the forest canopy above shimmer softly in shades of jade and teal and quiet gold. As Elian walked deeper along the mossy path, the ground beneath each step felt forgiving and plush, the moss thick and velvety under worn boots, releasing a faint, soothing scent of earth and distant rain, a scent that spoke of shelter and roots and the comfort of being gently held. The air in the forest was cool but not cold, with a kind of temperature that rested softly against the skin, neither demanding nor sharp, just present, kind, and enveloping. A subtle breeze moved slowly between the trunks, barely enough to stir Elian's hair, but enough to set the leaves above whispering in a language of tiny rustles and sighs, a constant soft song that filled the space between heartbeats. Here and there, tiny motes of pale light floated in the air like slow fireflies, drifting lazily with no hurry at all, leaving faint trails of shimmer that faded gently, as though the forest itself exhaled light in long, unhurried breaths. Elian's footsteps made almost no sound on the moss, only the softest of muffled tap and hush, tap and hush, blending with the distant murmur of water somewhere deeper within, a sound like a sleepy brook speaking under its breath. Each step felt slower than the last, not from weariness, but from the way the forest coaxed every movement into gentleness, into deliberation, as if the path were guiding not just the feet, but also thoughts and feelings, smoothing jagged edges, calming restless currents, quieting everything into stillness. As twilight deepened, the forest grew brighter in its own way. The trees' soft glow became more pronounced, and the floating lights grew more numerous, drifting in small clusters like tiny constellations that had descended from the sky to wander among the trunks. Elian lifted a hand, and one of the lights drifted near, hovering just above the outstretched fingers like a curious, glowing sea. It pulsed gently, expanding and contracting like a small, luminous breath, bathing Elian's hand in a faint warmth that felt as if it was soothing not only skin, but also something deeper, something that had longed to rest. A small creature rustled in the ferns nearby, and Elian turned slowly to see a fox-like animal, though its fur rippled with a soft, pearly sheen, as if moonlight had been woven into its coat. Its eyes were clear and deeply calm, pools of gentle amber, and as it stepped lightly onto the path, each paw left a brief imprint of glimmering light that faded, one after another, as though the forest received them with a quiet smile. The creature regarded Elian without fear, its ears relaxed, its body poised but not tense. And then it turned, walking ahead along the path, its tail trailing a faint, luminous mist that curled and twined in the cool air like a sleepy ribbon of cloud. Elian followed, knowing with the easy certainty that exists only in peaceful places, that this animal meant no harm, that it belonged to the forest as naturally as the trees and the floating lights and the moss, and that wherever it led would be safe, sheltered, and gentle. The path curved slowly, soft bends that encouraged unhurried movement, giving time to feel the cushion of moss, to listen to the rustle of leaves, to watch the way the fox's fur shimmered softly with each step. Soon, the distant murmur of water grew louder, though never urgent, never roaring, just a low, continuous cadence, like a lullaby hummed over and over without end. The air became slightly cooler near the skin, carrying the subtle freshness of moving water, a delicate chill that mingled with the warmth of the forest light, creating a perfect balance that soothed every sense at once. The trees began to spread apart, their trunks making room for a wide, gentle river that glowed from within, its surface a smooth, glassy expanse of deep blue and silver, as if the night sky had slowly melted and pooled at the forest's heart. The fox paused at the riverbank and sat, its tail curling neatly around its paws, and Elian stepped closer, feeling the damp, soft soil give slightly underfoot, cool and pliant. The water moved in slow, languid currents, making almost no sound, only the faintest shush of liquid over smooth stones, a sound so soft it seemed designed to coax thoughts into stillness. Tiny luminous fish drifted beneath the surface, leaving trails of pale light like soft strokes of a painter's brush. Thin strands of waterweed swayed gently, their tips glowing faintly. Lanterns beneath the water. The riverbank was lined with smooth, rounded stones, some of them glowing from within, casting a faint radiance that made the river's edge shimmer in muted shades of blue, green, and silver. Above, the sky had darkened to a deep, velvety indigo, and the first stars had come out, bright but soft, scattered across the sky like distant lanterns, watching over the peaceful world below. Elian knelt at the river's edge and reached out to trail fingers through the surface. The water was cool, but not cold. It welcomed the touch with a silky softness, curling around the hand like a gentle current of air, carrying away any lingering weight in small, invisible currents. The touch of the river seemed to slow time even further, each droplet sliding from skin with unhurried grace, leaving behind a sense of quiet and clarity. The fox watched with calm interest, its tail flicking once, then settling again, its ears turning slightly at the soft sounds of the river, the rustle of nearby leaves, the faint, distant call of some nocturnal birds singing a low, melodious note. Across the river, the forest continued, but here the trees were taller and more spaced apart, their luminous leaves letting more of the night sky through. Between the trunks, Elian could see small shapes moving, delicate deer with coats like starlight, their antlers adorned with strands of glowing moss, oversized moths drifting in slow, tumbling patterns, their wings dusted with iridescent powder that shimmered whenever they turned, and gentle, owl-like birds perched on high branches, their feathers soft as mist, their eyes half closed as they observed the quiet world below. A soft, pale mist began to rise from the surface of the river, curling upward in slow spirals, wrapping around Elian and the fox with a feather-light touch, cool and moist, carrying with it a faint, sweet scent like distant blossoms and fresh rain. The mist moved with deliberate slowness, making no sharp shapes, no sudden movements, only smooth, flowing curves that blended into one another, as if the very air were exhaling in long, soothing sighs. The fox stood and stepped lightly onto a stone that jutted out into the river, then onto another and another, each stone glowing brighter for a moment as its paws touched them, forming a luminous path across the softly moving water. Elian rose and followed, boots meeting each stone with a gentle tap. The faint sound immediately swallowed by the hush of the forest and the soft murmur of the river. Each step across felt like a small release, as if the water below were absorbing every lingering trace of strain and carrying it gently downstream, away into the distance, where it would dissolve harmlessly into the glowing currents. Once across, Elian stepped onto the far bank, where the moss was even thicker, a lush carpet of silver green that yielded easily, almost like down. The fox continued into the forest, and the trees welcomed them with arching branches that bowed slightly inward, creating a natural tunnel of softly glowing leaves. Under this living archway, the air grew warmer and stiller, the breeze thinning to only the faintest suggestion, enough to stir a few strands of hair, enough to move a few motes of light, but not enough to disturb the profound sense of rest that blanketed everything. As Elian walked along this archway, the sounds of the forest shifted. The river's murmur faded slowly behind, replaced by the gentle chirping of small, hidden insects, whose songs were soft and steady, a rhythm like a heartbeat. Somewhere nearby, a tiny waterfall trickled over stone, its sound delicate as a whisper, blending seamlessly with the rustling leaves overhead. Every sound was slow and measured, every movement of light and shadow gradual and unhurried, so that nothing startled, nothing seized attention. Everything flowed together into a single, continuous current of quiet. The scent of blooming flowers drifted through the air, subtle and sweet, not sharp or overwhelming, just a gentle presence, like a memory of spring carried on a soft wind. Small blossoms, luminous in pastel shades of lavender, rose and pale blue, dotted the moss along the path, their petals slightly translucent, their centers glowing faintly. Some of the floating lights settled on these flowers, resting like tiny stars that had chosen to nestle close to the earth for a while. And the flowers responded by deepening their glow, pulsing in time with the tiny lights, as if breathing softly together. In the distance, the forest began to open onto a wide, grassy clearing, its edges framed by weeping willows, whose long, trailing branches glowed with lines of faint light, draping down like soft curtains that swayed gently with the slightest movement of air. The clearing itself was a gentle depression in the earth, like a great, shallow bowl, and the grass that filled it was short and thick, glowing with a soft, steady silver light that made the entire space feel like a nest cradled in luminous hands. Above the clearing, the sky was clear and dark, and the stars shone brighter here, as if this place were closer to them, as if the distance between earth and sky had softened. A broad river of starlight spread across the heavens, a glowing band of countless tiny points, each one twinkling in slow, steady patterns, never abrupt, never harsh. The air in the clearing was stiller than in the forest, as if the trees around it were guarding a sacred stillness, shielding it from the rest of the world. The fox stepped to the center of the clearing and turned, sitting down, its eyes half closed, its breathing slow and easy. Elian walked forward, feeling the grass underfoot, each blade like a tiny, cool thread, brushing gently against the soles of boots, a constant, delicate touch that seemed designed to remind the body how to relax. The grass yielded fully with each step, taking the weight effortlessly, supporting and cradling without resistance. At the center of the clearing, a large flat stone rested, worn smooth by time, its surface warm with stored light. Around the stone, clusters of low, luminous flowers formed a soft ring, their petals open and turned towards the sky, as if listening to the silence between the stars. The stone itself glowed faintly with a steady, comforting light, neither too dim nor too bright, just enough to cast soft shadows and bathe the surroundings in gentle radiance. Elian removed the cloak and laid it across the stone, the fabric catching the light and becoming a soft, shadowy blanket. The stone's warmth seeped through the cloak, radiating upward in slow waves that relaxed tired muscles and calmed the rhythm of the heart. The fox curled up at the base of the stone, resting its head on its paws, its eyes closing completely as its chest rose and fell in slow, even breaths, a calm presence at the edge of awareness. As Elian settled onto the stone, reclining against the warm surface, every part of the body seemed to sink a little deeper, heavy in a pleasant way, as if gravity here were gentler and kinder, drawing everything toward rest. The sky above filled the field of vision, a tapestry of stars, each tiny light like a distant, steady heartbeat in the vast, velvety dark. Soft breezes occasionally drifted across the clearing, cool but not chilling, merely brushing over skin like a feather, carrying away tension with each pass, leaving behind emptiness where tightness had been, and that emptiness slowly filling with quiet. Around the clearing, the willow branches swayed in slow, synchronized motions, their glowing tendrils moving like water, rising and falling in long arcs, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow across the grass. These patterns moved with the same unhurried rhythm as everything else in this gentle world. Never sudden, never sharp, only fluid and continuous, like waves rolling softly in a sleepy sea. From the edge of the clearing emerged another creature, stepping with quiet grace from behind a curtain of glowing branches. It was a stag, tall and serene, its coat deep velvety brown, dusted with faint luminous specks like fallen starlight, and its antlers wide and branching, each branch adorned with tiny floating lights that circled and drifted around them like loyal companions. The stag moved with no urgency, each step deliberate and light, its hooves barely bending the glowing grass, and it came to a stop near Elian's resting place, lowering its head slightly, as if in a gentle greeting. Its eyes were calm and deep, reflecting the soft light of the clearing, and within them there was a stillness that seemed older than the tallest trees, a patient, unassuming wisdom that never judged, never hurried, simply watched with kindness. For a long moment, the stag stood there, breathing slowly, the rise and fall of its sides a steady, soothing rhythm, like the hush of waves against sand. Then it turned slightly, gazing out across the clearing, as though keeping quiet watch over everything, a silent guardian standing in the embrace of a willow light and star-filled sky. The fox's breathing remained slow and even, a soft, steady sound, just at the edge of hearing, blending with the faint rustle of grass, the quiet murmur of distant water, the occasional chirp of a small night insect. From somewhere high above, a bird with wide, luminous wings glided in slow circles, its feathers barely catching the air, making not a sound. It drifted in a lazy spiral across the sky, passing between the stars and the earth in long, peaceful arcs, as if tracing a gentle pattern meant to soothe the world below. Elian's breaths grew deeper, drawn in slowly through the nose, released softly through parted lips, each exhale blending into the quiet of the clearing, merging with the soft sounds of the night. The body felt heavy and warm, the limbs relaxing, the hands unclenching, the shoulders loosening, the muscles of the face softening without effort. It was as if the clearing itself were breathing, and Elian's breath had naturally fallen into the same slow rhythm, the same unhurried cadence. Time, or what had once been felt as time, stretched thin and delicate in this place, becoming less important, less defined. The moon rose somewhere beyond the trees, its silvery glow filtering through the drooping willow branches, joining the luminous grass and flowers, the glowing trunks and floating lights, until everything shimmered in a gentle, layered radiance. The night deepened, but never darkened in a frightening way. Instead, it grew more tender, more enfolding, like a thick, warm blanket being drawn slowly up around tired shoulders. In the soft distance, the river continued its slow journey, unseen but present, its patient murmur a steady thread woven through the quiet. The mist that had risen from it earlier drifted now at the edges of the clearing, gathering in small, curling pools between the willow trunks, lingering and shimmering, moving in loops and spirals that never rushed, never fought, simply flowed. Occasionally, a small breeze would ripple across the clearing, setting the grass to swaying in unison, a gentle shiver of silver light moving across the ground, like a subtle wave. The flowers nodded their luminous heads, petals fluttering with soft whispers of motion, and the tiny floating lights bobbed gently, rising and falling with the currents of air. Every movement was a lullaby of motion, soft and repetitive, each cycle returning to stillness, then to motion again over and over, never tiring, never straining. Elian's eyes grew heavy, the lids drifting down more often, resting half closed, then fully closed, then opening just enough to catch a glimpse of the stars before sliding shut again. When the eyes were closed, the sounds of the clearing became more vivid. The whisper of leaves, the faint rustle of fur as the fox shifted slightly in its sleep, the slow, steady breaths of the stag beside the willow trunks, the nearly inaudible hum of life in the luminous grass. Each sound was soft and distant, like an echo carried through layers of comfort, reaching the mind only as a suggestion, not a demand. The warmth of the stone beneath the cloak seeped more deeply into the muscles of the back, into the shoulders and neck, loosening every part that had once held tension. The weight of the body pressed gently into the stone, which responded with unwavering support, firm but kind, solid and grounding. The edges between body and stone seemed to blur as comfort took over, as if resting there meant merging with something older and steadier than any individual heartbeat. Above, the stars continued their slow, imperceptible arc across the sky, their positions shifting by tiny degrees that could not be felt, only trusted. The glowing band of starlight that stretched across the heavens remained a soft river of brightness, reflecting faintly in the eyes of the stag, glinting on the tips of willow leaves, shimmering on the wings of the bird that glided still in wide, peaceful circles overhead. In one corner of the clearing, beneath a low cluster of bushes with tiny, pale blossoms, a family of small, round creatures slept curled together, their fur like soft, muted clouds. They breathed in quiet unison, their tiny chests rising and falling with synchronized ease, safe in a world where nothing sought to disturb them, where the night itself seemed to guard their dreams. Nearby, delicate firefly-like beings drifted in slow loops, their light pulsing gently in patterns that matched the rise and fall of breath, a quiet dance of luminescence and shadow. The clearing felt wrapped in layers of safety. the trees at its edges standing like gentle sentinels, the river murmuring its soothing song in the distance, the constant presence of creatures who harmed nothing and feared nothing here, the stars keeping their silent watch above. Every part of this place seemed devoted to rest, to quiet, to the soft art of allowing everything to let go. Elian's thoughts, which had once moved quickly, now drifted slowly, then more slowly still, until they were no longer distinct shapes, but soft impressions, like clouds dissolving into a pastel sky. Memories, worries, plans, all the quick, sharp edges that had once crowded the mind softened and blurred, like ink spreading through water, losing their form, becoming gentle, harmless stains that faded into the surrounding peace. The mind floated, buoyed by the stillness, by the warmth of the stone, by the rhythm of breath, by the distant river's song and the forest's quiet lullaby. The fox, asleep at the base of the stone, twitched an ear as if sensing some shift in the air, then nestled its nose deeper into its tail with a contented sigh, its luminous fur dimming slightly as it sank into deeper rest. The stag remained standing, its eyes half closed, antlers shimmering softly as the tiny lights moved lazily around them, a crown of gentle stars. Its presence was a promise of watchfulness, a reminder that in this clearing, nothing needed guarding, because everything was already safe. The night deepened further, becoming a soft mantle that wrapped the clearing. But the darkness here was never empty, never cold. It was filled with quiet warmth, with the glow of grass and stones, with the gentle light of flowers and leaves, with the soft radiance of creatures and floating motes and distant stars. It was a darkness that invited rest, that cradled every sleeping form, fox and bird, stag and small creatures, and the lone traveler who had come seeking nothing more than a place to be still. As the hours stretched, the forest rhythms continued, gentle and unchanging. The leaves whispered, then fell silent, then whispered again, in a pattern as old as the trees themselves. The water flowed, and the mist drifted, and the night insects sang their soft, steady songs, never loud, never insistent. With each passing moment, the clearing's quiet deepened, thickening like velvet, encouraging every breath to lengthen, every muscle to loosen, every thought to slow. The sky, in its slow, vast turning, carried the moon further along its path, and its light shifted, washing the clearing in cooler tones, then warmer ones, then cooler again, like a gentle tide washing over sleeping shores. Shadows slid across the grass, over the stone, across Elian's resting form, but they were soft and fuzzy at their edges, harmless and soothing, changing so gradually that they barely registered. Just another part of the constant, gentle motion that defined this place. In the heart of the clearing, where Elian lay on the warmed stone, the boundary between waking and dreaming thinned and wavered, like a veil stirred by a slow, soft breeze. Images rose and fell in the mind, not sharp or urgent, but misty and tender. Soft paths under glowing trees, quiet rivers reflecting starlight, luminous creatures with calm eyes, the feeling of moss underfoot, the scent of rain and blossoms, the warmth of stone, the coolness of air, the delicate weight of safety pressing down like a blanket. These images blended into one another, carrying the same gentle light, the same soft motion, the same endless calm. There was no need, in this place, to hold on to anything, no need to remember, no need to plan, no need to do anything at all. The forest did not ask, the river did not demand, the stars did not judge. They simply existed, surrounding the clearing with a quiet so complete that it became a kind of music, a low, continuous hush in which rest was the only natural response. The branches of the willows continued their slow dance, rising and falling in subtle arcs, their glowing tendrils grazing the grass, occasionally brushing lightly against the warm stone with a sound like the softest rustle of fabric. The glowing flowers at the stone's base flickered gently, their petals opening a little wider with each breath of the clearing, then relaxing again, like tiny hearts settling into a steady, peaceful beat. The stag, standing near the edge of the willow veil, shifted its weight slightly, curves barely stirring the grass, then stilled once more. Its presence was like that of an ancient tree, silent and rooted, watching and waiting without impatience, content simply to be. The bird overhead tucked its glowing wings closer to its body and drifted lower, gliding in smaller, slower circles, casting a faint halo of light that passed periodically over Elian, over the fox, over the sleeping creatures, then over the grass and flowers, a silent blessing repeated again and again. The night drifted on, and in this gentle world, time lost its sharpness, becoming instead a soft blur of moments, each one like a small, luminous droplet slipping quietly into a still pond. The ripples of each moment spread slowly, touching everything with calm, then fading into the greater stillness that lay beneath. Within that stillness, breath remained slow and steady. The chest rose and fell, a rhythm as natural as the flow of the river, as the sway of the willows, as the drift of the stars. The heartbeat in calm, measured pulses, not racing, not straining, simply keeping its quiet pattern, guided by the soft, protective atmosphere of the clearing, by the watchful presence of gentle beings, by the deep, encompassing safety that wrapped everything. As Elian's rest deepened, the mind slipped further into quiet. The distinction between the clearing and whatever dreams might follow growing dim and soft. The forest around remained unchanged, a constant guardian of tranquility, its luminous leaves swaying, its floating lights drifting, its creatures resting and watching and breathing. The world beyond this valley might have its own movements, its own patterns, but here, in this sheltered place at the heart of the glowing forest, there was only calm. The grass continued to glow softly, undiminished, each blade holding its delicate light like a promise. The stone held its gentle warmth, never cooling, never overheating, just steady, just right. The air remained at the perfect temperature, cool enough to feel refreshing against skin, warm enough to feel embracing, balanced in a way that required no adjustment, no effort. When the moon came to rest near the edge of the sky, and the stars began to pale just slightly with the first subtle whisper of distant dawn, the clearing remained unchanged in its essence. There was no rush, no break in the quiet, only a gentle hint that time had passed, that the night had wrapped the forest in its peaceful embrace for many long moments, and that rest had settled deep into every living thing. The fox would eventually wake and stretch, its luminous fur shimmering softly as it rose, its paws silent on the glowing grass. The stag would lift its head fully, its antlers catching the early light, and turn back toward the forest's inner paths. The bird would glide higher and higher until it became a faint speck against the lightening sky. The small, round creatures beneath the bushes would yawn and shift, blinking sleepy eyes at the new day. But all of that would happen gently, in its own unhurried time, in a world that never hurried, never demanded, never broke the soft spell of safety. For now, for as long as needed, the clearing remained a sanctuary of stillness, of warmth, of luminous quiet, where breath and heartbeat and the hush of the night moved together in perfect harmony. Held in the embrace of the glowing grass, the warm stone, the watchful trees, and the endless star-filled sky, surrounded by gentle creatures and drifting lights, wrapped in the softest layers of silence and calm. All that remained was rest, deep and easy and endlessly kind. You are safe, you are held, you may rest now. Sleep.